Hi everybody, I'm Jen with the Giggly Gypsy and Allegory Gallery in Ligonier, Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. I have another fun tutorial and you're gonna love it. It's willy-nilly, you can do whatever you want and have fun with it. Don't be afraid of the wire. Before we get started, if you're new with us, hit the little bell so that you're notified every time we post something new. Like this video, please share it to your social media and post what you've created on our Facebook group, Allegory Gallery Design Challenges. I love to see what everyone has created and put their own little spin on my designs. Without further ado, let's get started. Today we're going to do another fun and simple wire wrap project. This one is called the Mary Jane. It's really simple. You can make it more complicated if you want. This is also one of them, doesn't have to be exact. You can go off and go a little rogue on your own, add some more beads if you want. This is merely just a suggestive base. So some helpful tools for this. Finishing wise, we're going to use liver of sulfur because, well, I don't like bare copper. You're going to remove that liver of sulfur with some of this handy dandy steel wool. It's very fine steel wool. A couple of different nail files, polishing cloth, and that should be it as far as putting that nice antique patina on it. So for the pendant itself, I'm going to use a 15mm coin. I do highly suggest that you use a coin that is drilled center all the way through. If you get one at the top, you'll be able to connect that, but not quite the same way, so you'll have to finagle that just a little bit. I'm using an African turquoise coin, but you know, if you use what you got on hand. I don't really strongly suggest that you use a see-through stone, as you will see the wires behind it. And I don't think you'll be happy with those results, but you could. Just, you know, you do you. We are also going to use a 2.5mm crimp tube. We're going to use 2 of these on there. We have a size 6/0 seed bead. Make sure that that's got a pretty large hole on it. And your crimp tubes, make sure that those are going to be big enough. Actually, make sure all of your beads are going to be large enough to go on a 16 gauge wire. Okay, so before you start your project, make sure that all of your beads fit on a 16 gauge wire, because you don't want to, you know, have a mishap and crack and then scramble for a new bead. Okay, so here we go. There's the 2.5mm crimp beads that will fit on a 16 gauge. We have the 6/0 seed bead that will fit on a 16 gauge. I have about 12 inches of 26 gauge wire. You're really not going to need probably more than about 8. But it's always good to have just a little bit extra. If you want to drop down to a 28 wire for wrapping, that would be good too. I just couldn't find my 28, so we're using 26. And then I have, let's see, we've got a 7-inch piece of 16 gauge dead soft copper, and I've got a 6-inch piece of dead soft 20 gauge copper wire. Some handy tools, a ruler. You're going to need a sizable round mandrel. We're going to be using size 4 on here, which if you have a ring mandrel, you can get away with using that. If you don't, I mean, you can find something around your house that's just a little bit, is that about a 1/4 inch wider than the diameter of your bead. So just be gentle, and you can use something you have lying around your house. Some wire smoothers. I've pre-cut and I've smoothed out my wires already so we can save time on video. I have several types of round nose pliers. These are bail makers that I often like to use for making rounds. A couple of sizes of flat nose, flush cutters, bent nose, a couple of needle nose, and a blunt nose. All the tools you're used to using for wire wrapping and intricate work, go for it. Let's start off with our piece of 16 gauge wire. We're going to put that around what I have cleverly labeled number 4, about midway. And bring that tight as you can all the way around your round form. That left hand side, make sure that goes on top. And you want to have something that resembles this. We're going to take your flat nose and bend that back piece 90 degrees up. And I'm going to take this left hand piece that's on the top, and I'm going to tightly wrap that around twice. I like to do that while it's on the mandrel so it can't get smaller. And you want to leave that with it heading off to the right. Just kind of smooth that out a little bit. There we go. And for this spiral we're going to curl it down and towards the left. And we want about 1 inch. So let's cut off that excess right there. Doesn't have to be exact. Okay, and now I'm going to take my nail file here, and I'm going to file the top at an angle so that it creates a slight point in the end of that wire. If you have a more aggressive piece, or even if you have some fine grit sandpaper, go ahead and do that. And you're just going to take that down to a little point. This just kind of gives that spiral more of a little point on the inside that I just really like. So just kind of rotate that around. Thin it out a little, and then make a little point. Here, I don't know if you can see that too well on camera. Maybe we can zoom in. It's just a little point. It's a blunt point. It's not super sharp. All right, so now we're gonna take one of our round nose here. I'm gonna use this bail maker, which is about 2 millimeters. I'm gonna put that small part on the inside of that point, and I'm going to kind of round it off a little bit to start. That also kind of smushes it down, and then I'm going to go in to a more solid point and start that spiral. See how that looks like a little point now? It's going to be really nice and cute. Let's get that in there a little bit tighter. You're going to do an open spiral, not a tight one. So I'm going to grab that with my flat nose all the way across and slowly bend that into the spiral. And I'm going to cover that coil on the top of that bail. If you find it's getting tight, switch to a different tool and just keep working that across. Straighten it out. All right. And I attack my stuff as I go because it's easier to get in there with the file before you do the other spirals. So I'm just going to shape that spiral just a little bit, flatten it out. This is a more aggressive nail file. This is super aggressive right there. So I do that first, but it's really rough. So you want to go over it with a really fine nail file after that. And just go until you're happy with the shape. There, I like that. Very cute. And I'm also going to attack the circle itself, just to give it a little shape, and that's also going to temper the wire. Let's go a little bit more aggressive. This is a really great technique if you don't have a hammer and anvil, or you just don't want to mess around with that, because a hammer is quite aggressive and it will really get your stuff out of shape if you don't know how to hammer properly. So there we go. Just go ahead and smooth that out. I left some of the spots round. I just gave it a little bit of shape. I'm very happy with that. Okay, so let's straighten this little guy out here. Okay, let's attack the top of our bail and the other spiral now. I'm going to use the multi-tier bail maker, and I'm going to use number 2 on there. And I'm going to grab that and bend that slightly forward. It's not quite 90 degrees. And this little one right here, this bail right here, this tier right here is going to give it enough room that we can go around once or twice and coil that. So when we are even with that spiral and we're all in a row, let's go up and around. And we're going to go to the left of the pendant. Okay? So something like this. And you've got a little space there for one coil. That's what you need so that your circle doesn't open. Now I'm going to grab that bail part right there by the top. I'm going to grab my sturdy needle nose, grab that wire by the very end, and go around once. And this one you want to head off to the right and on top. We're going to curl this in the opposite direction now. Go ahead and straighten that wire out. As best you can. Doesn't have to be perfect. Straighten your bail out. And let's go with about a 1/2 inch this time. Okay. And once again, we are going to file this wire into a little point. This time we're going to do the opposite side. If anyone's thinking smart right now, do not think about putting this in a pencil sharpener. It won't work. Okay, that looks good. So once again, I'm going to take my round nose and then kind of squeeze that thinner. Notice that when I squeeze, I run my wrist to the side. I'm going to gently start that curl. Gradually working in, getting a little bit more aggressive. Until I have that started. Okay. Now I'm curling towards the left. Until I cover that bail and a little too tight. So I'm gonna fix that shape until I'm happy with it. Straighten everybody out. I think that's still a little tight, so I'm gonna open that up a little bit. There we go. I like that better. Squeeze that in there. Good. That's much better. Perfect. I'm happy with that. Now going in again with my file. This one is slightly raised from this one, so it would have been a little bit more difficult to get into there. Just go until you're happy with your shape. This is great if you put any marks in there with your tools. There we go. I like that a lot. I'm gonna get the tool mark out of the top of the bale. Just gonna put a little flat indentation, give it a little character. When I'm removing the excess patina, I will hit that up again, take out any other tool marks you might see. Just be very gentle with your movements. Very happy with that. Kind of looks like a very fancy backwards E or a 3. Yes, it's a 3 for March. So I did one error that I knew I was going to make. I forgot to put this before I closed up my bale. But don't worry, we're gonna alter it. This was just a base. We're gonna change things up a little bit, and I think I'm gonna put them on the stone. My new stone is still a 15mm coin that I made sure would fit on the 20 gauge wire. Voila, look at that. Okay. So going in at an angle, and just a little bit, maybe more than 1/4 of an inch away from that spiral on the left hand side, that's where I'm going to join my wire. And I'm going to do about 4 coils, tight coils, going up towards that bale. So just kind of pinch that, and again, I'm on the top of the frame. And you probably only need, I'm gonna say about an inch. Doesn't have to be exact, but yeah, we're going with an inch. Okay, so I'm gonna grab the very tip of that wire, and I'm coming through my pendant, doing my best to hold that in place. I'm gonna go around once, twice, 3 times, and here comes coil number 4. I'll go in with my bent nose to bring that back to the end. Squeeze those coils together. And before I wrap that around, I'm going to snip off a little bit of excess. And I'm using the flat part of my flesh cutters against my piece. Now squeeze that end down so it doesn't scratch. Okay. Just like that. And I want this little gap here. It's part of the design. So go ahead and slip your coin back on. And I'm going to have to raise that up just a little bit because it's keeping my coin from going centered. Let's get it out of the way for now. All right, so you kind of want to make sure that this coin is going to have equal space all the way around. And it's going off to the right and on the top of my frame. So my first move is going to be this part right here, which is going to be twice around, and I'm going to go from the back up around the front. So I want to make sure that I am on the back. So there's 1, 2, and leaving off in the back. Use your tools if you have to. This is 20 gauge dead soft copper, so it's not too difficult to bend. But if you need to, use a tool. Okay, and kind of push that spiral back there now that you've got that bead in place. Okay, and now we're going to do this loop. So I'm going to kind of just form that by hand, smoothing my fingers in there, making a nice gentle curve. And I'm going to go in like a half moon shape around to the other side. But before I close this one up, we're going to fix our boo-boo. And I'm going to add my beads on. So add that first copper bead, add the next, which is that 6-0, and then the other copper bead. And just kind of slowly continue . And work that to the other side. And now I'm going to work these coils towards these ones instead of outward, I think. Let me double check. Now, I'm still going to continue it this way and leave a little gap there. So now going from the front around the back, I'm very firmly holding this in place so I don't lose my shape. Coil that around again. And I'm going to go a third time around. Tighten everybody down. Rotate your piece as you have to so that you can get in there nice and tight. Okay, before I secure that down, I'm going to clip off that extra. And bring that around. Perfect. Straighten anything out if you need to. And don't worry if you bent that away from your frame just a little bit. It's pretty easy just to slide that bead, get it back centered, like so. We are going to use the weaving wire, the 26 gauge weaving wire, to secure those beads so they don't flop around. Just gonna work this little guy back up. There. Just get that down by hand as tight as you can. Okay, so just going over the original design again before we whoopsied. These copper tube or crimp tubes and the 6/0 bead, you are going to want to drop down before you complete your coils. So as soon as you get that round shape in, go ahead and drop those beads down on your frame. The other thing you could have done instead of cutting that 16 gauge wire is when you came back around here, you could go back behind it, carry it across there, and wrap it twice on that other side. That would have stabilized it there just a little bit, but we are going to improvise and stick that 26 gauge wire up through. Your coin. And we're going to secure this on the other side. I left about a 1-inch tail there. Tight coils. I think I'm gonna stop at 6 if I can. There we go, exactly 6. Is that wire tucked in? No, let's go a little bit smoother. Get that on the inside of the frame. There we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to take this wire and go around the back to the front. Go around that bottom wire again. Be very careful not to kink your wire. I'm going to cover that entire wire there with some coils. Work that wire slowly because that is a 26 gauge and it doesn't like to kink or it's going to get brittle and break off. So, once again, it pays to have a little extra. I said, probably won't use more than 8 inches, but you know, your design changes sometimes as you go because you're really not in control of that wire. It's in control. Sometimes you gotta go with the flow. So you see what I'm doing? I'm covering that whole wire right there. And making sure that my stone stays center as much as possible. Adjust things around if you need to. Okay, that's about it. I'm going to bring this to the back now. I'm kind of keeping it warm by rubbing my fingers gently on it. Okay, now I'm going to work these beads back up. And we're going to secure those so they stop flopping. What I'm going to do is I'm going to splice this wire in with that 20 gauge wire. I'm going to go in between each one of those coils. Gently pull that, and when I come back around, go into the next coil. It kind of hides it a little bit. There, it looks like it did that on purpose, right? And come back around, do the outer loop. And squeeze that all shut. Now I want my first bead to be about there. That little bugger just wants to keep moving up, so do your best to work that back down and keep everything centered if you can. You know, if it's off center too, it really doesn't matter too much. It still looks good. Okay, so instead of cutting that right away, what I'm going to do is carry that on straight across where I want these coils to start to secure this. And I'm going to go around about 3 times. This is sewing with wire. There. It's going to want to move on you quite a bit. You know what? I am actually not unhappy with just leaving that there and doing some loosey-goosey coils and not having to cut that wire at all. I'm still going to continue this coil here. Those beads will be a bane. I'm going to loosey-goosey that. There, I like that. Let's get this other bugger up here that wants to keep going down. And we're going to continue this loosey-goosey feel, I think. I'm going to go around each one of these beads. Just once each bead. This is how new dreams are created. That large one I'm going to secure with one more. No, I'm not. I'm going to keep that spacing equal. So when I come back around, I'm going to catch and come around that side. There we go. I'm good with that. And now, so they really don't go anywhere, and they stay where you want them, finish that loose wire wrap down at a slight angle. so you continue that willy-nilly look. And just like we did on this side, we're going to splice that wire in, each one of those coils on that other side. As best you can. Those might be a little tight. And give it a couple of coils at the end. There. Take time to readjust if you need to. Okay. Now I'm going to take this, I'm going to go around one more time, going towards the back. And now I'm going to go around the back. So we're going to use almost all 12 inches of this wire. I'm going to go in between the frame and that stone. And now I'm going to wrap around these two so that we stop moving that stone. That stone will be fixed in place. And then we're going to break the wire. Do your best to get in there with your needle nose and complete that rope. Do not crack your stone. And just tuck that in so you can't see it and can't feel it. Good. I think I'm happy with that. That's very cute. It's not our original design, but it works. Just gonna make a few small adjustments. Be very careful at this point. It's not exactly where we were going, but it's close and it's cute. And we learned something new, right? Okay. I think we're done with this. I did end up using almost all 12 inches, but you see how brittle that got after a while. So be very careful. If you have to go in with another piece, then you just find another spot to splice it in and you go in with another piece. Hopefully my liver of sulfur solution here is still warm enough that it's going to do some sort of effect. I wanted to show y'all what I've been talking about with this patina. So this is liver of sulfur. You're just going to use an itty bitty little chunk, and you want the water as hot as possible. You want a nice clean piece. Most of the time I clean my stuff before I put it in the liver of sulfur with vinegar, and then I will rinse that vinegar off with hot water so that the piece itself is really hot, and then I will stick it in the hot liver of sulfur solution. But it's pretty yellow still. I think it might work. Hopefully my fingers were clean enough. My hands are very dry, so let's drop it in and see if there's magic. And there is. We lucked out. So I like to swirl that around. This patina will happen much faster if everything is hot. But we're lucking out, and it is going to work. So I'm just swooshing that around. And do this, please, in a well-ventilated area. And liver of sulfur is very stinky. It smells like rotten eggs. I won't lie. Swirl that around until everything looks equally dark. And go ahead and pull that out. Now, at this point, normally what you would do is put it in a solution of water and baking soda. Doesn't have to be a lot. And right here, I used about a quarter cup of water with one tiny little chunk of liver of sulfur. But in order to stop this patina from oxidizing any further, if you drop it in a solution, just a weak solution with a little bit of baking soda and water, that should neutralize the liver of sulfur so it won't continue. And at this point, it's very handy to dry. So we're going to dry it off camera. There we go. And now we're going to remove some of that patina. The combination of files and some steel wool here. I always do my steel wool process right after I stop the patina, and I do it under running water just to kind of remove the fuzzies and stuff that will occur. Just work your piece and remove that shading and add some highlights wherever you feel you need some highlights. You could also use a baking soda and water paste if you don't have any steel wool on hand. I've done that lots of times. And just work it till you're happy with it. There's no right or wrong. It's whatever the artist eye decides. If any part of the patinaed metal will touch the skin or your clothing, I do strongly suggest you remove that from the flat parts, because you will see the green ghost appear. It's part of the charm of copper. Let's just get into all those nooks and crannies. Do any more shaping if you need to. There, I'm good with that. And just polish it up with your little jeweler's polishing cloth, which is how you should always clean your sterling and your copper jewelry if you have put a patina on it, because if you ever use a jewelry cleaner, it will remove that patina completely and you'll have to start all over again. So just buff that up to a nice shine. And you're done. Here. A slightly varied Mary Jane. Thank you so much for tuning in again today. I hope you had fun. I know I did. If you like this video, please hit that like button, hit that share button, hit the subscribe button and the bell to make sure that you are notified every time we post a new video. And please visit us over on our Facebook group, Allegory Gallery Design Challenges, and post what you've created. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.